If you've ever fantasized about quitting your job, this Tuesday training is either going to scare you off or completely light you up. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm going to show you what it looks like to go from dabbling as a side hustle all the way to full-time freelancing. Um, and if you stay all the way till the end, I have a very special gift for you. If we haven't met yet, my name's Erica Nall. I'm a top 1% Upwork freelancer out of more than 18 million freelancers. I walked away from my 8 to 5 job in the medical field when my employer suggested that I just close my door as an accommodation to chronic illness. I've since built a 6-figure freelancing business, retired my husband. We became full-time digital nomads traveling the US, and now I help beginners get started in freelancing for free. If you're listening to this on the podcast, this is part of my Tuesday training series that I do for my free beginner community on Substack. There is a recorded video that usually will have different visuals that I'm walking through as I'm going through a training. Plus, there's a written companion guide that goes out with it. So I will do my best as I record these to describe what I'm showing on the screen for those of you who are on the podcast. But I want to make sure that you know that you can always head to Freelance with Erica .substack.com. That is my free beginner community. You can join totally for free. All my past trainings are on here with the videos and the written tutorials. And once you subscribe, all new future Tuesday trainings will slide directly into your inbox with those videos and the written tutorials. So one other housekeeping note before we jump into this is for those of you who are in the beginner community, not last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, I shot you guys out an email that I was sick with COVID and that I would not be doing the training. COVID has been kicking my butt for the last 2 weeks. This is like day 2 of being upright in the last 2 weeks. So as you can tell, I've like broken out in hives. And if my voice sounds a little more froggy than usual, my apologies. I may also cough a bit in your ear. When I do these recordings, I do try and do them all in one shot. I don't do fancy editing because I'm not a content creator. I'm just trying to get what's in my brain into yours and share what's helpful. So you will see me glancing at notes as I go through here. And a lot of filler words and everything else because I'm not going to spend hours editing this because this is a side passion project for me. This is not my full-time job. I actually do client work as my full-time job, and I'm doing all of this on the side as a mission-based project. So with that, let's go ahead and get going into the training where I'm going to talk about realistic timelines and strategies and how we go from thinking about freelancing all the way to becoming a full-time freelancer, so that you can walk away knowing exactly where you are on the path right now and what your next steps are. All right. So as we jump into this, I've got a little graph we're going to go through, and I'm going to kind of explain and help you kind of see the overall ecosystem of what it looks like to go from thinking about freelancing all the way to full-time. And the reason I decided to do this training is because when I started planning Freelance with Erica, I was very intentional when I looked at the process and trying to figure out what area do I want to teach? What area do I want to own? And so if you're not super familiar with online businesses, that's what I do with my client work. Is I'm an online business architect. I help people build their online businesses. And a big piece of what they teach you is to learn what's the scope of the transformation you're going to own. So from what point to what point are you going to teach someone to do something? And they tell you not to try and own the entire thing, right? You're too broad if you're trying. So if I try and own everything in freelance, that's pretty broad. But if I focus on Upwork, which is where my expertise is, that helps narrow it in. But also typically you would not be owning the entire process from I have no idea what I'm going to offer all the way to I've just quit my job and I'm a full-time freelancer. So I was very intentional when I chose where I was going to focus that I wanted to work with beginners, because to me that is the hardest part. And that is also where I think a lot of people who are well equipped to become full-time freelancers, who absolutely have the skills, but they allow a lot of their own self-doubt about like they don't know what they're going to offer, or they don't have the strategies. And so they're just trying everything randomly, and then they get frustrated and they quit. That's what happened to me the first time I tried Upwork back in 2019. And in hindsight, had I known the strategies that I know now that I teach in these programs, I absolutely would have gotten the momentum and continued on, and I would have quit my job a lot sooner than I ended up quitting it from the first time that I did freelancing. So my goal was I want to help people get through what I believe is the hardest part of getting started in freelancing so that they can get that momentum. And then for some of them who end up continuing on to full-time, they can. I purposely also was trying to stay away from the full-time portion as well, because again, in online business, and with me working with online businesses, and then also if you've been following me for a while, you also know that I'm a sales copywriter. That's what I specialized in on Upwork before my business took off the way how it did. So in sales copywriting, they teach you all about how when you are marketing or positioning your business, you speak to people's emotions, and you speak to their emotions by talking to them about their dreams, about their aspirations, but also about their pain points, about their resistance, their beliefs, right? You need to connect to them emotionally. And one of the best ways to do that is either to talk about the things that are most painful to them or the things that they really aspire to and dream about, right? And so in a lot of online marketing, and I'm sure that you've experienced this yourself, is a lot of times people lead with the big, bold, crazy dream that's very aspirational, right? And so you'll see these coaches talking about how you could have $1 million business, how you could, sell some courses and make, $50,000 months, right? Like everybody has a 7-figure map that they want to give you, like as their freebie, right? And so people tend to overpromise. Same thing with like weight loss. Like it's not sexy to be like, hey, I'll help you lose 10 pounds, right? They're like, no, look at this picture of this person who lost 100 pounds. Look at this person who went from totally unfit to running a marathon, right? It's like, it's these extremes, right? And so I decided on purpose that I didn't want to lead with the most aspirational version of like, you're going to just quit your job in a blaze of fire and peace out, and you're going to go become a full-time freelancer. Because logically, I know, just like any of those other transformations, it's not that people can't get that transformation, but it's that we know statistically it's going to be a very small fraction that do, right? And so to me, what felt better was to know, like knowing what I know about the process and knowing how difficult it is at the beginning, it felt better to focus my effort on, let's get people through this hardest part where most people quit, so that we can get as many people over that hump so that they have a clear runway and shot then to make it into the full-time freelancing. But let's not lead with the dream of the full-time freelancing. Okay. So as I've been building this, all of my messaging has been very much around, I'm going to help you figure out what skills you're going to get. I'm going to help you get your first clients. I'm going to help you get your first reviews. I can help you with advanced strategies as you grow it, right? And because I've done it all, I really can help you from A to Z on it. But what I've noticed as I've had people coming in, going through 10 days to paid, talking to me in the community, sending me DMs and emails, is very overwhelmingly, I hear you guys loud and clear that it's like, it is everybody's dream. And they do want, part of why they're interested in freelancing is they want to quit their jobs, right? And so I keep getting a lot of questions of people being like, how realistic is it that, like if I put 3 months into this, like how realistic is it that I could quit my job? I got laid off. Do you think that it's possible that I could make this work for me rather than looking for new jobs, right? Those questions are so nuanced, right? Like there's so many inputs that go into whether or not and when you're going to be ready to make the jump into full-time freelancing, that I have been answering those questions. But I thought, you know what, I want to go ahead and actually record a training, because I think that this is good from an expectation setting standpoint for everyone to kind of understand that if you're coming into this, and chances are if you're coming into my world, you are brand new to freelancing, that you have a very clear picture of what this process looks like, starting from the very beginning when you're first thinking about it to what's going to happen and what it's going to take to basically move down into the point that you end up being one of the few at the end who end up moving truly into full-time freelancing as a career and get to say, see ya to that 9 to 5. All right. So let me peek at my notes here real quick before I pull up the chart. So yeah, okay. And then like this, here's a good example of what I was saying is this is the other thing I want people to keep in mind when it comes to dreaming the dreams. In no way am I telling any of you that I don't want you to dream the big dreams of quitting your job. I truly, truly, truly mean this when I say that I believe the majority of people, especially if you follow these proven strategies and you show up consistently, you put in the work, you are a continual student, always looking to improve and to get better. I truly believe that you are then well prepared to go full time if you want to go full time. But it does require a lot of time, a lot of effort, right? And it's not going to be without some risks. And so we'll get into a bit more of that here in a minute. But what I was going to say is while I'm hearing you guys that you want to do that, I also want to make sure that we're not discounting the value of even if you don't end up going full time, there's still so much to gain from getting started, finding out what you like and what you don't, and going through this process, even if it just ends up being side income for you. Okay. And so the example I have of this is, let's say that I decided today, again, where people go from day zero to the big dream, like all the way to the other extreme. So let's say today I wake up and I decide I'm finally ready to lose this extra weight, but I'm not going to just have like a slow and steady, realistic plan of it. I want to go become a bodybuilder, right? And I want to be in a bodybuilding competition. And so I'm going to go from sedentary, mostly sedentary lifestyle, very overweight, to I'm going to go be a bodybuilder, right? Now, if there were 100 of me that woke up today and decided that they were going to do that, how many of us do you think probably are going to stick with it for probably the at least a year it's going to take to lose the weight, gain the muscle, get to the point that I could actually reasonably maybe compete doing some bodybuilding stuff? Not that that is a goal of mine, but right, you probably immediately you're thinking probably just a small fraction, right? But of those 100, everybody on day one probably starts off real strong, right? And then by a couple weeks in, we've lost some people, right? By a month in, we've lost some more people. By 3 months in, we're probably down to just a core group that really has stuck it out, right? But what I want to point out is even if you set out with that goal and you said, I'm going to do this, even if I do it and I don't end up making it to that goal, even if I don't compete in the bodybuilding competitions, but let's say I do make it 3 months, 6 months in, how much have I actually changed just by walking down that path, starting to go down the path towards that goal, right? I probably am eating better. I probably am drinking more water. I probably have lost weight. I probably am gaining muscle, right? I probably feel better in my energy. I feel better in my body. And now obviously at that point, I have to make a choice of, am I going to continue to do the work to maintain that weight loss, even if I decide not to go all the way to the bodybuilding? But my point is that even if you go into this with this mindset of, I want to quit my job, what I want to say is that there is a lot worth still getting out of freelancing, even if you don't end up doing it full time. Okay. So for some people, it might be that you're consistently going to earn a few hundred extra dollars each month. For some people, it might be a few thousand extra dollars each month. For some people, you might dabble on and off, but in the process, you're going to figure out what sort of work do you enjoy doing. You're going to build yourself a long-term asset. That's one of the things that I can't emphasize enough, is that even just doing the work in 10 days to paid, you are beginning to build yourself a long-term asset where you have client reviews, 5-star testimonials, job success scores, talent badges, right? And so as you build up that asset, because you've pushed through the hardest part, it then makes it infinitely easier for you that at any point in time, if you leave and you come back, you already have that asset sitting there that you can immediately hop back in and start applying to jobs, and it will be infinitely easier for you to get those jobs. So let's say you get laid off unexpectedly, right? And maybe you did 10 days to paid months ago. Maybe you fizzled out, you stopped applying for jobs. Now you don't have to go through that grind that you did during 10 days to paid, because you already have a seated profile. You already have the reputation and social proof that you can do the things that you do, that now you can come in and just immediately start applying and be in a much better position to get jobs. Obviously, the further along in this process you go, the easier it's going to be for you to get jobs, because the more social proof, the more reviews, the more jobs that you do, the more willing that people are to choose you when you apply for a job. Okay. So a lot of people get stuck in that all or nothing mindset, right? If I don't meet the final goal, I fail. And what I just really want to challenge you is to think through that this really is you learning a skill set that's way more than whether or not you go from thinking about freelancing to full-time freelancing. And it's more about you learning the skill set of how can you provide for yourself without an employer standing in the middle? How can you go fish for yourself and go find clients and bring money into your household? Now, at what pace, how long you stick to it, at what rates you charge, all that's going to look different for everybody. But in the end, that's a critical skill that you're learning. Okay. And that is the skill that I want to be responsible for teaching you how to do, so that that way you can confidently, no matter where you fall on the scale that we're getting ready to go through, you know exactly where you're at, what your next steps are, and that you know that it's okay if at any point you say, I'm good here, I'm ready to stop here, right? It is totally fine if you decide, you know what, I just want to make 300 extra bucks a month. Perfect. That's exactly what this is for. That's not a wrong answer if you don't want to take it all the way to full time. But for those of you who do want to take it to full time, again, I want to make sure you have a very realistic picture of what this looks like. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Maybe share my screen. Okay. So hopefully you should be seeing this on your screen. Okay. So here's a handy dandy little chart that I made for you guys that I want to go through. Okay. And this is just a good way to visualize what I'm talking about and to help you kind of understand how I'm envisioning this process going as we continue to work together on your freelance journey. So what I've got up here at the top, if you've, again, been following along for a while with my stuff, you've seen me draw these sorts of funnel pictures more than once. I think that they're just a really good way to visualize and conceptualize this. Now, I've used it for other to demonstrate other concepts like your effort versus the amount of money that you're going to charge, the amount of freelancers that you're going to compete against. So this funnel represents so many different things when it comes to freelancing. But today I'm going to talk about the funnel of people going from thinking about freelancing down to full-time freelancing, while also talking about some of the different dynamics as you're moving through each of these phases. Okay. So if you're listening in on the podcast, what we're looking at here on my screen is I have an basically a picture of a funnel, an upside down triangle. And then at the top, I have a big sea of people, like tons of people, right? Probably hundreds of people. Those people up here at the top are representing all the people that are sitting here thinking, I hate my job, but wish I could work for myself. You know, oh, maybe I should try freelancing, but I don't know what I would do for freelancing, right? It's all the people that are contemplating. They know that they have a problem. They know they're interested in making more money. They know maybe they're interested in freelancing or side hustles, or that they need to do something, but they haven't quite decided or taken any concrete steps yet towards it. That group of people is a lot, right? At any given time, there's a lot of people that know that they have a problem, they're problem aware, but they have not yet figured out what their solution is or started actively taking steps towards the solution. So when I am out here in the world talking about Freelance with Erica and what I offer to help people, I am speaking to that crowd of people and I'm saying, hey, I'm over here. And if you'd like, I can teach you how to get started in freelancing. I can teach you how to figure out what services you should offer, even if you think you have nothing to offer. I can show you how to get your first client, how to get your first reviews, how to deal with the different common things that are going to come up as you're getting started. And I can give you a strategy of how we grow from there, right? And so from this big group of people, they then move down to this first tier in the funnel. So again, if you're listening on the podcast, I've got our funnel split into 5 tiers, starting at the very top where it's the widest, and then all the way down to the bottom. Okay. And so right now we're at that top tier. So people have moved from this crowd. And now, as you can see, we've got less people, still quite a few, but less people sitting in 10 days to paid. So 10 days to paid is my free course that I have put out that helps you do exactly what I just said. Figure out what you're going to offer, land your first paying clients, get your first reviews. All right. And I know from experience, because, you know, where I'm telling you that it starts off with this big amount and then it goes down to less, I've had about 100 people so far pass through our free community. Of those 100 people, only 25, so 1 in 4, 25% are raising their hand and saying, I'll take the free course. It's completely for free, right? So a solution is being offered. They're in the free community, so we know that they're interested potentially in freelancing, but they haven't yet taken that first step into, I'm going to start actively doing things to try and solve this problem that I have, or this pain that I feel, or to try and acquire this dream that I have, right? So I know that about 1 in 4 people are going to step down from raising their hand saying I'm interested in freelancing into actually taking some action, actually going through the program. Now, what you'll notice is the next tier down, I have Road to Top rated. So that is going to be the next course I'm going to be building here in August, because we have, and I'm very excited about this, we have a number of people that have gone through 10 days to paid and are getting amazing results. I can't emphasize enough how excited I get when you guys drop your wins in our community chat. Like, it's so soul nourishing for me. But like literally, and I apologize in advance for the students who are in there dropping their wins, because I'm constantly like peeking at profiles just to see updates on like, how are they doing? But I have one student I can think of right now that has 7 jobs landed using the 10 days to paid strategy. Another one that has 5. Multiple students end up with at least 2. I've seen so many rising talent badges, lots of them with 100% job success scores. Like, it's so exciting to see the successes that are happening. But even with that, so like I said, there's 25 going through. I'm able to see on the back end right now, it's an email course. So it drips through in 10 days in email. And so I'm able to see if people are actually completing the sequence. Are they going into the emails? And just because they open the email doesn't mean they actually do the training, but at least is it some indication of, are people actually sticking through this until day 10? And as you can imagine, only a fraction of them are. And I think that fraction are the ones that I see in our community chat that are celebrating their wins, because they're showing up consistently, they're doing the work, and they're getting results. But that's probably maybe 10 to 15 people are in there right now of the 25 going through that are celebrating their wins in the thing. So now that I have this kind of graduating class moving through 10 days to paid, they're ready for the next strategies. They're ready to take it from these beginner strategies to get the first clients into, okay, now how do I start to move into this next step? And so again, you can see it's less people. So these are my people that are winning in 10 days to pay. They're going to move down. When we hit the Road to Top rated, this is where we're going to switch from doing the general beginner type jobs that are quick and fast and get you the good reviews. And we're going to start to transition more heavily into niche based jobs. Now, we're not yet specializing yet. This period is also where you're doing skills building. So you are learning how to improve upon the skills that you're going to offer. You're learning to kind of focus in on and get a feel for. This is where we're still experimenting, figuring out, okay, if I'm going to do copywriting, do I really enjoy doing emails or websites or blogs or doing copy editing, right? And so this is your chance to dabble with a bunch of those different jobs, figuring out what industries do you like, what niches within your niche, so possible specializations are you enjoying. And then as you start to get a feel for, I think I really kind of like maybe email copywriting a lot. That's your chance then to start skill building on top of it, to where you start learning more about those skills so that you can become more of an expert, which allows you again to move deeper down into this funnel, because the more we specialize over time and the more of an expert we become, the more premium prices we can charge. So one of the things you'll notice here too on my funnel is next to each tier that we have of these 5 tiers, you'll see that there's a dollar amount next to it. And so I think in probably one of the very first trainings I did on here in a Tuesday training, I know that I already went through this concept, but for those of you who may not have seen that training, you'll see that it's $1 sign next to the top of the funnel in 10 days to paid. It's $2 signs on the next tier, the Road to Top rated, 3 for the third, 4 for the fourth, 5 for the fifth. And what I'm trying to show you is that when you're up at the top of the funnel, you are competing with the most amount of people. It's the most amount of work that you're going to have to put in. It's the hardest point in the process, because again, you're competing with the most people, but you're also charging and making the least amount of money. And that is why when I say that this is the hardest part where a lot of people quit, that's why. If it's a lot of effort and if you compete with a lot of people and you're charging a low amount of money, that's frustrating. And sometimes it's very hard for people to see the path forward, that this is eventually going to lead down to the bottom to where you're charging those big dollars and it is enough to support you, because it certainly doesn't feel like it when you're in the grind of this first part and you're charging low amounts of money just to try and get your momentum going to get it snowballing. Okay. So in the Road to Top Rated, like I said, I'm going to start that course or those teachings in August, okay, for my graduating students from 10 Days to Paid that are ready to take it to the next level strategies. In Road to Top Rated, in Upwork, Top Rated is 16 weeks of you being on the platform. So it's your first 4 months on the platform. I think most of the students in 10 Days to Paid, it's probably about 30 days that they're spending in there. They're usually landing their jobs within that first week or two. But one of the things I teach in 10 Days to Paid is that I actually want them to continue to use those same strategies for their first 11 jobs. So like I said, I've got some at 7, some at 5. So it's probably going to take a good 30 days or so to get through that first part of 10 Days to Paid. But then after that, we move into the Road to Top Rated. So really, Road to Top Rated, you will have already probably gotten your first 30-ish days taken care of in 10 Days to Paid. So you probably have about 3 months left on that 16-week timer. You can't get the top rated badge until you have been on the platform 16 weeks. And for 13 out of those 16 weeks, you need to have had at least a 90+% job success score, okay, which should not be a problem if you're following all the strategies taught in this program. And then you also need to have billed more than $1,000. So the big focus of what I'm going to teach there, and really the Road to Top Rated is going to go beyond your first $1,000, but basically it's going to be all about exploring, all about getting more specialized in your niche, using some advanced strategies on how we do proposals, doing version 2.0 of your profile to kind of elevate it. So it's not going to be a heavy jump from what you're doing in 10 Days to Paid. It's just we're starting to refine it. Your rates, this is also going to be a big part of where we're going to be walking up your rate. It's like one of the primary places where we're going to start walking up your rate. Then after Road to Top Rated, we move into getting to your first 10,000 plus in freelancing. Okay. So first job, first 1,000, first 10,000. When we get to your first 10,000, this is another distinct area that after we get you past that top rated, and we've been doing all of these fast jobs that are limited in scope. When we get to your first 10K, what we're going to be doing during this is where we're going to start focusing on specialization. We're going to start setting up specialty profiles. We are, if you haven't finished walking up your rate, and again, I worked with you guys through all these details about how to walk up your rate, how high up do we want your rate to go, and spoiler alert, it's a lot higher than a lot of people think that it is. I'm going to teach you how to take your rate to at least 2 to 5 times whatever you're earning in your current 9 to 5 job. So in the first 10K, we're going to really start to specialize. That's where we're going to start to maximize your rate, and we're going to start to specialize into a niche and have you start landing those specialized clients during this phase. Okay. Then we move into the fourth phase, the second smallest on our funnel towards the bottom. And this is where, now that we have landed in our specialization, we also have so much work underneath our belt that we now can very easily time estimate. So let's say you did decide to specialize in email marketing, right? By now, you have done enough specialized work in your first $10,000 that you earned in freelancing that you should be able to pretty confidently say, it's going to take me 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever the amount is, to write this type of email. It takes me, an hour to write this type of email. On top of it, you also, because again, you're specializing, so you don't have to know all this stuff right now. This comes naturally as you work your way down this process, okay? But as you're going through this, when you get to retainers and projects, you also have done enough work in your specialization area that you probably have also started to come up with some level of not necessarily standardization, but it's like, so let's say it's email marketing. There are certain things that are just typical asks in email marketing. So people want welcome sequences, they want onboard sequences, they want upsells and downsell sequences, they want nurture sequences, they want flash sale sequences. And so they call them sequences, but it's really a series of emails that usually are doing marketing. And sometimes, a lot of times, there's planning that goes behind how you do that messaging, right? And so it's like it might start off with a personal story, and then it might have some like results from students that have gone through this thing, and then it kicks off a flash sale that's going to be for 3 days, and there's going to be a countdown timer, right? And so once you've done enough of those, you start to be able to really easily estimate for someone. I could do a 6 email welcome sequence. I have one that performs really well that I've done for other people, that I can take that as a framework, and I know that I can duplicate that for someone else, personalized to their business, right? But use my same framework. I know how long it takes me. And so then when you're able to start estimating, because you know your time that well, that's when you can start doing flat fee-based projects. And that's where you can really start to make a lot of extra money beyond hourly rate. But we don't lead with that, because when you are new, you can't estimate your time very well. And for a lot of you, you probably, especially if you've gone through 10 days to paid, you've probably seen that for yourself, to where you'll go into something thinking, oh, this will be quick. This will take me 30 minutes or an hour. And the next thing you know, it's 2 or 3 hours. And you're like, oh, like, I'm glad I'm hourly on this, right? So that's part of why we do hourly when you're starting off, is because you don't yet know. And it's not until you get a lot of iteration and practice that you really are in a good position to start flat fee pricing your projects. The other thing that I'll teach you when you get to this point is on retainers. So again, this is advanced strategies. And especially in this, like, this middle section, the first 10K and the retainers and projects, not only is this where we're specializing, it's where we're charging our premium, right? So at this point, we easily should be 2 to 3 times your old 9 to 5 rate that we're charging here. But with these, there's just a lot of advanced strategies that are going to come into play here, because you're getting to the point that not only are you specializing, but we're also starting to optimize your business. So we're trying to make everything repeatable so that it takes you less time. Okay. And so part of that's going to be learning how to set up retainers and how to have a process that just naturally guides clients from, we do their 2-hour trial to get them started. If we assess that it's a good fit, the next step, instead of a typical proposal, is we're going to talk to them about retainer options and give them prices for retainers. So with retainers, this is where we're not going to touch retainers until you have your rate well above what you're making in your 8 to 5, and you have gotten to whatever that goal rate was that you wanted. I don't want you locking in long-term ongoing work at a low rate. That's one of the quickest ways to burn yourself out and make yourself hate freelancing. Ask me how I know, because I did it a number of times, and then I was like, fuck my life. I can't believe that, like, I'm stuck in this contract doing this work that I really am not enjoying, and I'm not enjoying this client, and now I'm stuck in this, right? And so part of this is that the other reason we don't touch retainers until we get down towards the end is that if you wait until you are at your premium pricing, the clients that you are going to call in at that point versus trying to do retainers when you are at the beginning of your phase. And I know it's so easy. Some people want to skip these steps, right? We want to go from 10 days to paid to, can't I just land long-term retainer clients? Like, it's a good deal. This sounds great. It will give me some stability. I want to do it. Well, the problem is that you're locking in long-term work, usually at a rate much less than what you could be charging. Now, I know for some of you, let's say right now you make $30 an hour, like at your job. And if someone comes in and says, I want to work with you and I want you to work 20 hours a week for me at $35 an hour, you might be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Well, the problem is it's not as amazing as it feels when you're hungry to get out of your job and someone is offering you a carrot that looks delicious and like it's more than what you make now. But that $35 an hour is not accounting for a lot of time that you're going to spend that's not billable hours. So you have to send out proposals, you have to do administrative work, you have to pay taxes, and some different taxes that right now your current 9 to 5 employer pays that you'll pay once you're full-time freelancer. So like, it's just, you consider it's the cost of doing business, but that's part of why I have you walk your rate up so much higher. But I think a lot of times in our brains, we get stuck in thinking, well, if I make this much at my 8 to 5, that's how much my work should be worth, or that's how much, that's what my line is for what I'm trying to shoot for. But the thing is what you get paid at your current job is totally irrelevant to what you can charge for online for this service. And people, your company, a lot of times how they're making their money is that they charge these premium prices to clients who happily pay it. And then they're giving off a small portion to the employees while then taking the profit that's on top. So what we're doing is we're removing the employer out of it. And now you get to be the person that leaves with that premium rate. So just because you make $30 an hour does not mean that you can't be charging $150 an hour. And why wouldn't you charge $150 an hour if you can, and people happily want to pay you that for your service, right? So that's what I don't want to see you do, is I don't want you to see you get excited and be like, oh God, I've got to take this retainer that's $50 an hour, because that's huge, when really you could be charging $150 an hour. Okay. So the whole idea of this is to make you hold yourself until you get down to the end to where you're in here in these premium rates before we ever touch a retainer agreement, because it's going to bring in high quality clients who are stable, right? Clients who are going to pay you $75 an hour, $100 an hour, $150 an hour. These are clients who have established businesses. They are stable. They are investing in their business. These are the clients that tend to stay long term. So I can tell you, like with my clients, I work with coaches, but again, I charge a premium rate. So I'm not just calling in any coaches. I'm calling in coaches that are well established, ones that literally have made millions of dollars selling courses, programs online, other ones that make multi six figures a year. And they're usually just standalone coaches. Like it's just they themselves. I say they themselves and I, and that's not right. I don't know what the phrase is I'm looking for there, but anyway, but it's just them by themselves, right? And then they're hiring side help to come in and help them with these projects. And so what's beautiful is, because I work with these very established, successful coaches, I have one, they're able to afford much larger retainer contracts. So I have retainer contracts that are $4,000 a month, $2,500 a month, $1,000 a month, right? These aren't little chintzy contracts. These are large monthly obligations that they have agreed to. And then on top of it, they're long-term clients. So the way how I set up retainers, and again, when you get to this point, I'll walk you through all this. But I tend to set mine up as 3 months upfront, and then month to month after that, with either side giving 30 days notice. So that way, if they do decide at any point that they need to end our retainer, I have 30 days to go find my next client to fill up that space. The other thing I really love about doing retainer-based work and freelance work, especially when you get to this phase, is unlike when you work full-time in a full-time job, if you get laid off or you quit, you lose 100% of your income, right? And you have no say in how much notice are they going to give you, any of those details. With freelancing, I have basically three coaching clients that make up probably 90% of my monthly revenue. They are like my bread and butter. I cut down my client list when I started freelance with Erica, so I had time to work on this. But I have 3 clients to do that. And then I have a couple little ancillary, like copywriting. I have a couple copywriting clients on Upwork, and then I've got one other like consulting client that I'm working with. But those 3 coaching clients have all been with me. 2 of them have been with me well over a year, and the other one's coming up on a year. And the nice thing is that if at any point in time, with them making up 90% of my income, if any one of them gives me my 30-day notice and says, hey, like, I need to stop, whatever. I mean, and it's not even necessarily, retainers can end for any reason. It's not necessarily because the relationship isn't there anymore. It could be that they're going through their husband just got laid off work, and they just aren't going to have the money, right? It could be anything. But I've set it up to where I get 30 days notice. I don't lose 100% of my income, right? Just one person goes away. So I still have 2 of my clients that make up the bulk of my income, plus of these ancillary ones. And the other really beautiful thing is once you get to this point and you have these really deep relationships with people that are investing a high amount of money in you, you are helping them get results. Those people end up being some of your best referral references that a lot of times you don't even have to work hard to get the next client. So the clients that I'm talking about, they all came from each other. Started with one who referred to the other, who referred to the other. And I guarantee you that if at any time one of them said, hey, I need to take a break, or I've got to tap out for a little bit, all I'd have to do is message all three of them and just be like, hey, can you let people know that I have an opening? I don't even have to do the work for it anymore. Like, they have the network. They bring people to me. Which is amazing, right? So, but my point to that is that doesn't just happen. We don't jump from 10 days down to that. You have to work your way down to it. And it's during this first part, and 10 days to paid, road to top rated in this first 10K, that's going to be the grindy part. And they're all grindy in different ways. And this is the part where people, like I said, are most likely to quit before they get the momentum that they get down here, and you can see the tree through the forest of like, this is how this actually becomes full-time. Okay, so retainers and projects, and then finally full-time. So as you see, as you look at this graphic of the funnel, it starts off with a ton of people at top, and you can see by the time we get down to the bottom, we've got just a couple people that come out on full-time. Now, my hope is for everybody that we could move everyone that does 10 days to paid all the way down to full-time. But just like the scenario at the beginning with the weightlifting, we know that that's probably not realistic, right? So what I want to make sure is kind of like clear as I'm thinking through the process of what I'm building with you guys and what I'm going to offer as I work through this. It's like I wanted to be really clear for both you and me as far as where is kind of like my focus and effort, and then what can you guys expect as you move through this funnel. Okay, so this top part, these first three tiers, this to me is going to be the meat and potatoes, the bulk of where I spend. Sorry, I take that back. Up here, so this is finding out what you're going to do, being interested. So like this first phase of finding out, 10 days to paid and road to top rated, this part, this is the beginning foundation. This is like the critical beginning foundation. This is going to be the meat and potatoes of what I do in the free beginner community. So these sorts of trainings that you get on Tuesdays are going to be heavily focused on people in this phase, these top three areas. Okay. It's also where a lot of my free trainings are going to be. It's also where I'm going to have a very low cost, it's called a mini membership, a very low cost monthly support membership. That is where my support and my effort to help people through this phase will be in that little low cost monthly membership. Okay. But then these advanced ones, so the first 10K, the retainers and projects, all the way up to going full time, I think just because I'm hearing so much interest from people and so much focus on the full-time work, it's not that I won't or can't help you with that. It's just that it's not going to be the primary focus. So what I'm probably going to do is I will have a secondary offer later down the road as people are moving down and need these more advanced strategies of some way how people can work with me more directly as you get to that, because a lot of it gets so nuanced and it is so personalized. Okay. So what exactly that looks like, I have not yet totally figured out yet. So just for now, what I want is we're just going to keep moving through it. I'm going to keep offering it for free the way I am now, which will lead me to my gift for you here in a minute that we'll talk about. But I just want you to kind of have an idea of the vision of where we're headed. Okay. So that this first part will be the primary focus of the low cost paid support community. Will be helping people get all this foundational work to get up and going and get established. And then when we get to these advanced strategies towards the bottom, that will be a secondary sort of, whether it's mentorship or coaching or something, but I'm going to come up with something that will be different for all those advanced strategies for people who want to continue on. And really by that point, again, if you look at the picture, we'll have a much smaller, intimate group of people. And by then you're also going to be charging these much more premium rates, that you'll be in a much better position that I can give you the support that you need, but be able to do it in a way that's a fair exchange between us for giving you that time and effort and coaching and mentorship to do it. The other thing I want to mention here, as you see this arrow along the side, so I've got the funnel that has all the tiers and the people, and off on the left side, I have an arrow that points down from the top all the way down to full time. And in the words, it says, pay down debt, your emergency fund. Now, I've done a past Tuesday training. I will link it down below to go look at that. But if your goal is to go full time, the number one thing that you need to be working on right now, besides going through 10 days to paid and starting to work on establishing a profile, getting a reputation built, is you need to be working on reducing your financial footprint as much as possible. So paying down your debts, reducing monthly bills that you don't need to have. And I go into great detail in that training of examples of how we did it in order to pay off all of our debt and to reduce our financial footprint. And then as well as the details about building an emergency fund. I will never, ever, ever recommend that anybody think that they're just going to jump in and become a full-time freelancer without having done a lot of financial preparation to be in a safe place to make that jump. Okay. So it's really, really critical that you have built yourself up an emergency fund and paid down debt, because for some of you, you're going to be able to walk this process from the top, just considering it, thinking about it, to 10 days to paid all the way down to full time. For some of you, that process could go very quickly. I would say for most people, I think a realistic expectation is to think that this is going to take probably 6 to 12 months for most people. Okay. And in 6 to 12 months, for a lot of people, you can probably do some pretty good emergency funding and working on paying down debt during those 12 months, especially if you're taking your freelance income that you're earning and putting it towards paying off that debt, or earning and putting it towards that emergency fund. So again, I'll link that training. It'll go through all the details on that. But even if you sail through this, and let's say you're 4 months in and all the numbers are showing you you're ready for that jump, if you don't have that emergency fund and you haven't reduced down your financial burden that you need to meet each month, I still would say that you need to just continue to work on building up that emergency fund before you're going to be ready to jump into full-time freelancing. Okay. So that's really, really, really important. The other thing I have off on the right side is that next to each tier, I kind of also put a little note as far as like, really, what's the focus that we're working on in these different tiers, so that you can kind of understand how it progresses. So in those first 3 tiers, when we're first starting, this is where we're skills building and we're building your foundation. So that's the foundational work. Okay. Now, overlapping on tier number 3, when you're working towards your first $10,000 in jobs, you're still skills building at this point, but you're also starting to specialize. And then when you're in retainers and projects, you're specializing, but you're also beginning to optimize. And then I have optimizing for retainers and projects and full time. So what I mean by optimizing is, again, that's where we're starting to the point that we can begin to standardize aspects of our business. We can standardize how we present retainer contracts. What sort of percentage off do we give people based on the different hourly tiers? What's the pricing, right? So that way we're not recreating the wheel every time. We can standardize things that we specialize in, especially flat fee projects. So if you're going to offer a flat fee project of a welcome email sequence for 6 emails, you can have your framework ready. You could have your AI prompts ready. You could have a document template that you know that it goes into. Everything that saves you time, right? So that you can get the output quicker. And because you're charging a flat fee, that makes your effective hourly rate go up, that you're then charging for that service. All right. The other thing, I'm going to scroll down now. And now what I'm showing on my screen for those who are listening on the podcast is, when I said earlier that for some of you, this could come quickly. One of the things that I teach when it comes to going full-time is that I do not think that it's reasonable, nor do I want you to try and work 2 full-time jobs at the same time and burn yourself out. Okay. And I think for a lot of people, they assume that they're going to have to, realistically, if they want to become a full-time freelancer and quit their job, that they're going to have to work this freelance business all the way up to being a replacement before they can quit the job. And so I teach this a bit different, starting all the way from the very beginning. When you do 10 days to paid, I give you a proposal tracker. And in that, you learn all about how to learn your closing rate. So how many proposals do you have to put out equals how many jobs do you earn. So you learn your proposal rate. And then we talk a lot about raising your hourly rate and walking up your rate as you go. And I have strategies for how you do that very quickly. That all happens in those first 3 tiers on the funnel. But I just want to show you how, like, so that you can actually see what this looks like, that you understand how this can dramatically show up in a way that easily shows you when you're ready to quit your job without you having to put in full-time hours. Okay. So what I did here was I put 10 billable hours per week. So assuming that that's the commitment of time that you're putting in. So you're working a regular job, but you have committed to put in 10 billable hours a week that you're going to do and work on Upwork. Now that doesn't mean that that's 10 hours total. You still have to send out proposals, right? And so you could change this math if you decide it's 5 billable hours a week. For some of you, you might have more time available. Maybe you do 20 billable hours a week, but I use 10. Okay. And I started here that when you first start in 10 days to pay, I have you start at a low hourly rate. Or I guess low is subjective, but I have you start at $15 to $25 an hour, but I also have you discount that rate. Okay. So we lead with that as our profile rate, but you're discounting it in order to incent your first people. I don't care if you make $200 an hour right now in your 9 to 5, you're still going to start at this low rate because we have to start building your profile and then we walk it up quickly. Okay. So let's say $10 an hour was the effective rate. If you do 10 billable hours at $10 an hour, you're making $400, right? And it's very easy that when you're in these first stages, so you're billing $10 an hour, $25 an hour, $35 an hour, this can feel like a real grind when you're working a full-time job and you're putting effort in on there and you're charging these low fees and you're looking at, okay, I'm putting in all this effort to make an extra $1,000 a month. And while that extra $1,000 a month is really nice, this does not feel sustainable. I don't see the path that gets me to a full-time job. Well, what you have to keep in mind is that what I'm teaching you is quickly going to let you keep raising that rate, keep raising that rate, keep raising that rate. Now, for some of you, you're going to have some mental mindset blocks that are going to come up overcharging some of these rates, especially if you're used to making $20, $30 an hour. And then I'm telling you that you can charge $75 or $100 an hour. For some of you, that's going to feel uncomfortable. There'll be some stuff to work through on that. I will have that as well in our community and future trainings that we'll go through. But the whole idea is you absolutely can charge these premium rates. And as you grow your profile, you're building the proof that you can charge those premium rates. So those same 10 billable hours, by the time we hit $75 an hour, what was $400 extra a month becomes $3,000 extra a month, right? These same 10 billable hours at $100 an hour becomes $4,000 a month. So what we're doing is I care a lot more about where you are here in your hourly rate. And sorry, for the people listening in on the podcast, I have a bar chart here that's showing 1, 2, 3, 6 bars going up in ascending order. And I'm showing how it goes vertical when it comes to charging your hourly rate. And so I have underneath each of them what the hourly rate is. So for the $10 an hour, the bar chart shows 400, $25 an hour, it shows 1,000, 35, 1,400, $50 an hour, 2,000, $75 an hour, 3,000, $100 an hour, 4,000. So I'm showing how it's the same amount of work. You're still just putting in 10 billable hours. The only thing that has changed is that you're following the program. You're walking up that rate systematically because you are continuing to show up consistently and put in the work and work your way through these tiers in the funnel. Okay. So as you work your way down, you're going to watch this rate go up. And as that rate goes up, one, do you see how if now suddenly you're making, if it started off and you're making a few extra $100, but now for those same 10 hours, you're making somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000, how much more quickly you're going to be able to pay down debt. You're going to be able to build that emergency relief fund. So even if right now with your current financial situation, you hear me talk about that and you think, how would I ever do that? Like, don't you think if I could be doing that, I would be doing it? What I'm saying is what you're going to learn is going to empower you to do that. It's going to give you the means to do that. Okay. But you have to see it through. You have to be consistent with it. So once you have walked up your rate, and then when we pair it with your closing rate. So if we know that you have a closing rate, let's say that's 20% or 25, let's say 20%, that means for every 5 proposals you send out, you're going to land a job. right? Also at this point, before you're going to go full time, this is when we're starting to work on retainers and projects. So what I'm going to have you do is once you get up to this high amount, we're going to start securing your first retainer agreements. Okay. And so if 10 hours, if 10 hours a month at 100, let's go with 75. Let's just leave it rather than going to the most extreme. Let's do 75 is bringing you in $3,000 a month. Depending on what you make right now in your current job, I'm gonna pull up a calculator. Let's just do some quick math. All right. So let's say right now you make $30 an hour at your job. We'll assume you work 40 hours, 52. So you're making $62,000 a year. We're gonna divide that by 12. All right. So your gross amount, so before taxes that you're making is $5,200 a month. If we walk up your rate to where you're 75 an hour, you already just working the 10 extra hours on top of your job right now, you're already making $3,000 a month. Okay. So now we know that our gap, just to keep you whole, that if you were to quit your job to make sure that you can jump from 3,000 to at least 5,200, but obviously our goal is that you can make much more than that, then really what we're looking at is a $2,200 difference. All right. And you're charging $75 an hour. So let's divide that by 75. That means you need 29 extra hours a month. Divide that by 4. So 7 hours a week of work in order to just be even. And so if we know what your closing rate is, right? If we know that you send out 5 proposals, you get one. And then we also know that we're going to be proposing retainers. You're literally 1 to 2 retainer contracts away from stabilizing that and replacing it. And the beautiful part about this is that right now we're saying it's 10 billable hours a week, right? And we've figured out that it would take another 7.25 for you to replace your income totally, right? So all you need to get to then is, we'll round it up, we'll say 18 hours a month or 18 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week at your current job to make the same amount of money that you're making at your current job, right? And that is part of why we have that emergency fund that you are building up, is that while I think I would have a reasonable level of confidence for you, and I think you should as well, that if you quit your job and if you have followed the process, you've gotten good at your proposals, we feel confident in your closing rate, there's really no reason you shouldn't be able to immediately jump and close that gap with a retainer contract or just by sending out proposals and landing new jobs. But even if you didn't, that's part of why we have the emergency fund that you're going to do, which I recommend that it's 6 months worth of your expenses. That if you have that sitting there, that if you are short 1,000 or 2,000 that first month that you make that jump, it's not a big deal because you have that cushion while you get. My apologies. That's pretty good. That's the first time I coughed, given the COVID. But anyway, that's part of why you have the emergency fund, is to help you with that. And with the emergency fund, let me also just point out that made me think of it with me coughing with COVID, is there's never been a greater example of why emergency funds are so important, is as someone who is completely self-employed. My husband, when he got laid off because my business was doing well, I told him, just don't go back to work. So I'm the sole income earner in our household. And so if I don't get paid, we just don't have money in the household. Okay. And so a big part of this has been growing and having my emergency fund, us paying down our debt so that we have a reduced footprint and financial burden. Because if you don't have to cover as much every month, it makes it much easier for you to show up in your business confidently and not stressing about money. Okay. Now, this will, for a lot of people, it's a temporary sacrifice. You're going to do it in order to get yourself launched and get yourself up. Eventually, as that business grows and you have lots of excess money, you're way beyond your emergency fund, you're making way more than you ever did, then obviously that's when you can start adding back. You can start increasing that financial footprint. But if your goal is to jump full time, you really need to decrease that financial footprint first so that you can make the jump. But with this emergency fund, I was not anticipating being sick for 2 weeks. And I literally was just like down for the count. I tried to work, and every time I would get up and I would sit at my desk, within an hour, I was like, I got to go back to sleep. I was in horrible, horrible shape. And even now, I'm still not 100%, but I lost 2 full weeks of work. But because of the way how I built my business and my contracts with my clients, I was able to miss those 2 weeks and it's fine. There's no problem. And even if, so luckily, because majority of my clients are on retainers, my retainers are set up that I do my work on a monthly basis. We set the priorities for the month. I deliver it by month's end. That gives me a lot of flexibility. Then if I get sick in the middle of the month, that I just know, okay, well, I'm going to be busy this last week of the month in order to finish up all these projects that I need to do, right? And that luckily I also have beautiful humans as clients, so I can easily just tell them, hey, this came up, and they're very flexible. And that's what I hope for you guys too, as you move through this and find your dreamy sort of clients as well. But on top of it, I also, so not only have I been sick with COVID, but we're moving in 2 weeks. And so we have a move in the middle of next month, right? And that's exactly why you have this emergency fund, is so that I don't end up freaking out financially when I'm like, oh my God, I just had COVID. What am I going to do if I can't work for 2 weeks? Or what am I going to do if I need to take the week off while we move and get things situated, right? And so it's just, I can't emphasize enough how important that emergency fund is going to be if you're serious about wanting to go full time. All right. So with this path to full time, again, what you're going to work on with me as we move through this process, as you're building this foundation, is we are worried about walking up your rate to the highest rate that we can, to where you're at your goal rate, before we start working on locking them into retainers, or we start quoting flat fee based projects and specializing. Okay. And definitely, we want to get you to that premium rate before you go full time. And we're going to use that premium rate in combination with your retainer agreements and your closing rate, so that we know if you send out proposals, realistically, how many does it take to get you a client, as your line to know when and if you're ready to go full time. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this so I can talk to you face to face here. Oh, I'm all fuzzy. All right. Well, hopefully I'm like trying to get in close to see if I can unfuzz it. Sorry, guys. Did I mention that that's as good as it's gonna get for right now? Did I mention that I don't edit these things? So enjoy this fuzzy face. So the one last thing that I'm just glancing at my notes here too, because I feel like I just rambled. Top of mind of all the things I want to share with you without really thinking about my outline. The one last thing I want to say about going full time. So as I mentioned, my intention is our primary main support community will be on the focus on beginners, getting you building your foundation, getting you the momentum that you need to go. For those of you who end up following through, showing up consistently, and you end up in that smaller, more intimate group, I will have offers later down the road that, like, I don't want you to think that I'm saying I won't be here for you to help you get through those next more advanced strategies. That will come. I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet. The one thing that I do want to say though about going full time is that while I'm happy to help mentor and coach through that process, I don't think that I will ever feel comfortable being the final person saying like, yep, you're ready to do it, or no, you're not. So I'm going to give you all the tools. I'm going to give you my best advice as far as what I've learned. But here's the thing. There's a lot of intangibles when it comes to working for yourself that I don't think, one, I can't just put it in a course and teach it. And two, I just don't feel like it would be fair for me with someone that I have even if I get to know you, it will still be like a limited relationship for me to really be able to coach you through some of the things that come up when you work for yourself. So I can tell you firsthand that I can give you all of the checklist items, right? Get your emergency fund ready, walk up your rate, get your reputation on your profile going and your social proof, right? So that you've built up the reputation, you can easily get clients, right? And so everything on paper can be right to say you're in a good position to make this jump. But there is so much like nervous system, mindset, comfort level stuff that comes up for people, and it looks very different for other people. that is part of what I think ends up being the difference between people who are comfortable jumping into entrepreneurship or working for themselves versus people who are highly uncomfortable with it. Okay. And so part of what I think allows me to be a full-time working for myself, only my income in the household person is that I have, and I haven't always had this, I had to develop it, but I have developed a very, very strong sense of security with myself, meaning that I feel very comfortable that I can take care of myself. So I no longer worry about the what ifs, right? Like, because even now, even with having money sitting in an emergency fund, even with having all those things, I could spend a lot of time worrying about all the different things that could go wrong, all the different ways how my money could be eaten up, right? Like, and it's very different when you're not having an employer hand you a check for a set amount every single 2 weeks, every single month, constantly coming into your bank account. You instead are going out, doing the work, waiting for that money to come into your account. It's differing amounts of when it hits. There's sometimes delays and when something moves from one bank to another bank, right? And that's why we have the emergency fund. But for me, I have built a really deep level of trust in myself that I know that if something happens, let's say all three of my clients just like all give me notice on the same day, right? And so 90% of my income goes away immediately. I still have a deep enough trust in myself that I'm resourceful. I can figure anything out that comes up. And so if that happens, I I don't worry about having that plan up front. I trust myself to come up with that plan when the situation happens. Okay. And that has happened to me. I can't tell you how many times, right? Over the last few years is like I had a unexpected hospitalization where I had sepsis and got a $140,000 hospital bill. Okay. Like things that I don't want to spend my time worrying about things that may never happen, but when they do happen, I trust myself to figure out how to problem solve it, to be resourceful enough to figure out how to go get myself money if in an emergency I need it, to have contingency plans on how to do stuff, right? And so that's the sort of stuff that I don't feel comfortable with someone telling them like, yeah, cool, go quit your job and go do it, right? Because I can't know their inner workings enough to know whether or not are you going to feel comfortable holding yourself through that. Now I can talk a lot about what that looks like. I can help people that are struggling with some of that mindset work on it. So all that stuff will come. But what I'm saying is in that advanced stuff, I will take you guys all the way up to here's the checklist, here's the things, and I can help you with the mindset stuff. But in the end, really the people who are going to be able to go full time are people that honestly, if you go through the first parts of building the foundation, you're going to be the people that are ready to run on your own anyway, right? Like, you know that about yourself. You know that you have that in you, that you've wanted that you're hungry for it, and that you're going to figure it out. All right. So I'm here to help you no matter which part of that phase you're in, no matter which stage you're in. And again, I want to normalize it's totally okay if you decide you're going to stay up just in those foundational phases. That's really where my focus was intended to be anyway, because you can earn, as you saw, hundreds all the way to thousands a month doing just part-time work on the side following this program, right? And so that's my hope for a lot of you, is that this can just become financial relief, financial stability, while teaching you a skill that you have in your back pocket that should you ever need it in an emergency, or you do decide later on you want to go full time, you have it at your disposal. Okay. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me get to the free gift for those of you who listen through this really, really long training. I always go into these trainings thinking like, oh, this one will be pretty short. Maybe I'll get this one done in 30 minutes. And then like an hour and a half later, here we are. So let's talk about my free gift for all my freelance babies. So if you're new in my world, I just launched Freelance with Erica back in May. Okay. And I have been doing this as a side project. It's all for free. And I've just been building the content, the community, just trying to get it up and going. I wanted to make sure that we were getting results, right? Make sure that that I have people actually interested in what I'm doing, validating that this is working. And it is, which is very exciting, right? So, but I also want to be super transparent that my goal is to eventually turn this into something that can replace my client work so that I can focus full time on this. I would love nothing more than to be able to just pour myself into helping students, helping you guys with your freelancing. So, but I also very much don't want, I recognize that a lot of people are struggling financially. And so I don't want this to be like, here, buy this $1,000 course or $2,000 course. So my intention all along has been to build what I call the mini membership or a low cost support membership. I put it up earlier this month, $9 a month, $99 a year. And I've been trying to just kind of figure out, I've been sitting with it while I've been sick with COVID, trying to figure out how do I actually want this all to look? What's the business model? Because I'm really just kind of building it as we go. So one of the benefits for you on this is that because I am just building this as we go, is that you're getting a lot of stuff for free and a lot of access to me for free, which is amazing for you and for me that we're both, you know, getting this thing off the ground together. But one of the bad things is you probably are going to watch me go through a bunch of different iterations as I'm feeling this out and trying to figure out where I'm going to head with things. So here's where I'm at as of the moment. If you are already in my world right now, so if you are on freelancewitherica.substack.com, if you're in the free beginner community, I am going to have a link below. I also am going to send an email from my like personal list to everyone probably later this week. But I am inviting you into that paid community for free. So everybody who is with me now, who is part of this beginner community as I've been getting this up and going, I want to invite you in to this paid community. It's on School. If you've never used School before, there's both a desktop and a phone-based app version of it, but it's really neat. It's very well organized. There's a classroom where I can host courses in there. There's a whole chat forum. It's much more chat friendly than what we've been trying to do in Substack. There's like gamification to it if you care about that, like where you can earn points. It's really nice. It's really sleek. You can turn on and off notifications, but it can send you push notifications on your phone or send you emails if you want it, or you can turn those off. Anyway, I want to get our community going there. I think that we need a nice central hub for the community. And then I also am playing around with, as I'm feeling better, so it'll probably be over the next week or two. But I'm going to take 10 days to paid, which right now is more than 12 hours of trainings like this one that goes step by step. And I'm going to chunk it down and I'm going to try and cut out some of the extra fluff and side tangents to just get to the meat of everything. I'm hoping to reduce the time that it takes to get through the video content by 50% is my goal, and put them in little like 5-10 minute long videos that people can work through, have all the resources there within the course. And then I'm going to pull in the Tuesday trainings. The other really nice thing too is that as you guys ask questions in the community, if it's related to anything within one of the courses, I can pin our conversation directly into the course so that other people can see it. It's just got a lot of really neat features. So what my intention is, and again, this is subject to change because I'm building the plane as we're flying it, but what my intention is everybody who's here, you're in for free for life. Okay, starting in August, I'm going to begin teaching live or releasing live. I'm going to start recording. Let me back up and explain that, say that the way I mean to say it. Starting in August, I'm going to start teaching the road to top rated, which is the next tier down after 10 days to paid, because we have people graduating from 10 days to paid. I am going to begin recording those trainings and releasing them within that community before I get the whole course done. So as I record them, I'm going to release them so that you can start working through it. And then when I'm all done, kind of like 10 days to pay, then I will chunk it down and put it in its final version in a course within the community. All right. And then that will get us our baseline foundation within that community. And then at that point, I will turn the community paid eventually. So it will be that $9, $99 a month. And 10 days to paid and the Road to Top Rated will be inside of the paid community. All right. There still will be a 7-day free trial so people can come in, get started for free. But that will be moving into the paid community is the plan. But the good news is for everybody here that if you found me early, if you're one of the OGs, if you're a founding member in our beginner community, you're getting access for free for life in this community. All you need to do is follow the link. You can join for free. And then just know that once I get Road to Top Rated done, I am going to turn the community to paid. And then that will be the beginning of starting to work towards hopefully transitioning this from a passion project on the side as a side hobby into something that potentially can become a full-time focus for me. So thank you for hanging out this Tuesday with me, listening to all this training, especially with the froggy voice. And I'm sorry I've been out for the last 2 weeks, so I've been very sick. So next week, I would say probably for the next 2 weeks, there may not be a Tuesday training. So next Tuesday, I'm going to be in New York City for my best friend's 45th birthday, and then the following week we are moving. So and I'm still playing catch up from all the COVID, so expect not to see me in your inbox for the next 2 weeks. And then but I will be in our community, so definitely join the free community. I will be in there. I'll be responding to questions. I also plan to kick off the Road to Top Rated trainings in that community as well. So hopefully I'll see you inside the school community. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please, if you would be willing to give it a like, leave a comment, share it, follow along on the beginner community, any of the stuff that tells the algorithm this was helpful, I would really, really appreciate it. And I will be back in your guys' inboxes later on in August for your next Tuesday training. All right. Bye, everyone.